What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Sniper Gaming channel, and welcome back to How Do I Want to Do This. This is our series where we take a look at all playable options available to players in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, then we rank them on a scale of 1 to 10 and either build them or fix them depending on how they rank. Now today we begin our talks on the Genie Patron Warlock, one of the new favorites introduced in Tasha's, and we're going to see why today. But before we jump into it, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, of course, make sure to share the video with your friends and click the bell so you're notified when new videos are uploaded. So the Genie Warlock is probably the easiest to quantify what it is that you are making a deal with, right? You're making a deal with a genie, right? There are obviously plenty of different types of genies that have been presented in media across all the years. Of course, the most famous one being from Aladdin, but there are plenty of others that come up with that. And D&D also has its own versions of genies. They're not quite, jump out of the bottle and have a Broadway musical number, but they still are very, very powerful and can do a lot of really cool things. But what do they bring to the table to our playable character options? Let's find that out today. As always, we start with our expanded spell list, and this is actually very unique compared to any of the other subclasses that we have talked about, in that we get one spell that comes online for every list, and we also have to choose what type of genie that we would like to serve or would like to have made a deal with, or whatever your situation is. And depending on what type of genie it is, that determines what your other spell is in your expanded spell list. So here is the chart for you to take a look at. So all genies get Detect Evil and Good, Phantasmal Force, Create Food and Water, Phantasmal Killer, Creation, and Wish, which is a huge deal. And then, of course, you see the extra lists there to the side. Remember that these are not just freebies that go on your list no matter what. These are ones you do have to choose to take instead of other options, just like all of the other Warlock stuff. But yeah, these lists are interesting. Some are better than others, obviously. The Jinn and the Ifriti are obviously a little bit better than the Marid and the Dao, but still, they're all not too bad. And while the Dao, I would say, has the weakest of the spell lists, it kind of makes up for it in other ways, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But they all are completely viable, right? They all absolutely make sense. The Ifriti feels a lot like what we have talked about in the past, right? With the Fiend. The Fiend I'll put up in the iCard above of your fire focus type of thing, but this obviously takes that in a much different direction as well. But we get Wish. That is something I can't ignore. That's huge. That's huge. Being able to cast Wish as a Warlock is massive, and we absolutely would be taking that every single time we played this if we made it to level 17. This is pretty fantastic. Like I said, the lists are all pretty good. Some are a little bit better than others, but still you get what you need on each list, honestly. And for that reason, I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. I can even see a 10 out of 10. If you think it's a 10 out of 10, I get it. The Wish there is huge. But I can't say that every list here is perfect, and so for that I got to dock at 1 point, but it's pretty close. Also at level 1 we get Genie's Vessel, and this is where the genie is stored, or at least possibly. It's not really clear where the genie actually is, because we are the ones that can go into the vessel, but it isn't specified that the genie is also there. So something to work out with your DM. This entire feature is kind of something to work out with your DM, and I'll talk about that here in just a second. So we get some choices on what we would like the actual vessel to be. We get an oil lamp, urn, ring, stopper bottle, hollow statuette, or ornate lantern. You can really choose whatever you want. And of course, if your DM wants it to be something different, I'm sure that you all can work that out. The one that is most interesting to me is a ring, just because then that can be worn by another player and carried around, and so you can be chilling inside of the vessel while your friend carries you around. That can be a big deal, and we'll come back to that here in just a second. But with this, it comes with a couple of features. Number one is bottled respite, and this is there's a lot of words here, but basically what it means is we can enter it as an action, and there is a pretty large space inside. It is 20 feet by 20 feet, which is pretty huge, honestly. It's a pretty big space. We think of extra dimensional spaces like bags of holding, right? This is bigger than a bag of holding. You will also notice that there is no mention of a weight limit either, which is another difference from a bag of holding. If we die, of course, that vessel is going to be destroyed, but otherwise we can chill inside of that vessel, whatever it happens to be, equal to a number of hours that is twice our proficiency bonus, which is pretty cool. Once we get a proficiency bonus of 4, obviously then we could even long rest inside of this thing, which is pretty cool. We can leave stuff in here as well. It's not super clear on how we get the stuff in there. Is it just if it's in our pockets we can take it in there, or if we're touching it, or there's not really a lot of specification there. But it is what it is, and of course we can only enter this once per long rest. There is also Genie's Wrath that comes with this, and so whenever we hit a creature with an attack roll once per turn, we can deal extra damage equal to our proficiency bonus, and the type of damage is associated with whichever patron we happened to take. We of course have, AC and HP and all of that of the actual bottle. It's very flimsy, and so it can be knocked out in that way, but you can get it back with an hour-long ceremony. So there's a lot going on here, right? Ultimately, we get some kind of extra dimensional space we have access to, and we can go inside of it and store stuff, or just chill out and rest, or whatever it is that we need to do. This is pretty big, right? There are a lot of implications that I'm thinking of here, right? Number one, we can rest inside of it without affecting any of our party, right? We are a warlock. We want to take naps all the time, and our friends may not necessarily want to take those naps. And so if we're traveling or going through whatever, you can just jump inside of the vessel, chill out for a little bit, let everything else continue, and you get your spell slots back. Is that being a team player? Not really, but you can of course play to your strengths and get back out as a bonus action, which is pretty great. And like I said, you can actually even long rest in this once we have a proficiency bonus of 4, because it's double that in hours. The other thing to bring up is the amount of space that's in here. It's a 20 foot by 20 foot space. That's pretty massive, and like I said, it's bigger than a bag of holding. We can store things in here, and there's no weight limit to things that are in here, whereas a bag of holding, again, has a limit there as well. This takes out a lot of those limitations, and that's pretty huge. The big thing, obviously, is that a bag of holding you have access to all the time. This is going to be a once per day thing, so you better not forget anything inside the vessel, but still, that's a pretty big deal, and I think that helps out a lot. It also is an infiltration tool, I think. So you put the oil lamp on somebody's belt, or somebody's wearing the ring, and later on we actually can have multiple people inside of it at once. And so we could have everybody with the rogue, right? You have all of your noisy boys, and then everybody goes inside of a ring or whatever, and then the rogue sneaks in, something goes wrong, everybody's out, and you go, right? That can lead to some pretty incredible situations as well. No matter how you look at this, the way that this all works is very much to the player's advantage. It is super, super cool no matter what you do. Again, I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. It's super, super strong. Level 6, we get Elemental Gift, and this is a pretty simple ability, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. So not only do we get resistance to a damage type, again, the one that is associated with which patron we chose, but we also can give ourselves a flying speed for 10 minutes that is 30 feet, during which we do have hover. We can do this a number of times per day equal to our proficiency bonus and get them back on a long rest. This is incredible, right? We get a damage resistance out of this, which can be very useful, right? Bludgeoning is going to be one of the more common ones. And then of course we have Thunder, Fire, and Cold. So this is where Dow is starting to pick up in stocks, right? Which is really good. But the concentration free flight at level 6, 10 minutes for multiple times per day, that is going to be more than enough for what we're going to need. Absolutely fantastic. The culmination of all of this, it's very simple, but man, it's good. 10 out of 10. Elemental Gift is really, really good, and I'm really glad that we have access to this. The flight on a Warlock is massive because we have so many great ranged options, It's just going to be fantastic no matter how you look at it. At level 10, we get a feature that I talked about a little bit earlier. It's called Sanctuary Vessel. With this, we can now bring people with us into the vessel. So we can take up to 5 willing creatures, which is more than enough for most parties. And as a bonus action, we can actually eject anybody from the vessel if we want. And everyone, of course, is going to be ejected if we leave or if we die. This is mainly to prevent us trying to trap people in the bottle, so just be careful with that, but that's why they do that. In addition, anyone that remains within the vessel with us for at least 10 minutes gets a short rest. That's a big deal as well. And anyone who rolls hit dice can actually regain hit points of what they roll plus your proficiency bonus, which is super cool. Again, this is incredible, right? We can short rest in 10 minutes. So you bring your fighter with you, you bring your monk with you, you bring all of your friends that really enjoy those short rests. Everybody jumps in, and you know, the wizard has you on his hand because he doesn't really care about the short rest, right? You're done in 10 minutes. You may not have time to wait for an hour to do your short rest. It may have to be longer. This means there's no waiting at all, right? Everybody pops in, whoever's on the outside keeps going, short rest happens, and we're back out in 10 minutes, no problems at all. That's huge, right? That not only benefits you, but it also benefits a lot of your party. And sometimes that's hard to find when it comes to Warlock features. A lot of them are very selfish. This one is not. This works for everybody, and it's going to put your entire team in a really good position. This is, again, a 10 out of 10 feature. It doesn't sound like it's all that great, but man, it is a huge comfort, and it just makes everything so much more convenient. It's undeniable how good this is. Finally, at level 14, we get Limited Wish. We know what Wish does, but what does it look like when we pull it back just a little bit and make it a capstone feature? So with this, whenever we use an action, we can actually tell our genie, hey, I would like to cast any spell that I want, 6th level or lower, that has a casting time of 1 action. This spell can be from any list, and we do not have to meet any of the requirements, including components. And once we use this feature, we cannot do so again until we finish 1d4 long rests. That's pretty insane, right? Obviously, there are a lot of spells that this does leave off, your 1 minute, your 10-minute spells, right? No contingency, which is one that I wish we could do, but none of that, right? No simulacrums because it's a little too low level. But either way, there's still a lot of really, really cool stuff that we can use as part of this. To me, this is a great way to use those pocket spells, the ones that are your greater restorations, your raised deads, your ones that maybe you didn't want to pack, maybe your pass walls. If you're in a weird spot and nobody wanted to pack that spell, hardly anybody brings that spell, but when you're in a weird situation, pass wall can save your life, right? And so it's to me, this is your free use of I'm in a really big pickle, I need help. And you just use it, right? Of course, there are plenty of damaging spells. You have your mass suggestions, right? You have all kinds of other options that you can use for that. But to me, this is best used on those spells that nobody wants to bring, or you become the backup if someone dies who filled a niche before, right? Your cleric goes down, now you can get the cleric back up, right? Your druid goes down, you can help out with some basic healing if you need to do that too. There's plenty of options here, and honestly what I would do is sit down and be like, okay, depending on who is in my party and what roles are out there, what spells need to kind of be in the front of my mind if something goes wrong? What do I need to be thinking about when I use this feature? The worst part of this feature is the recharge, right? 1d4 long rest. So you may have it the next day. It may not be for 4 days until you get to use it again. To me, I feel like 1d3 or even like a coin flip would have been a little bit better, right? You get a coin flip, and if you fail it, then you have to wait a day. To me, that would have probably been a little bit better, but it is what it is. So maybe the dice will work in your favor, maybe it won't. You just have to work on that yourself. Is what it is in that case. But still, this is incredibly good. I still have to give this a 9 out of 10 because of the incredible versatility that this gives you, and it takes away a lot of the limitations that you normally would be facing here. So what do we think of the Genie Warlock? This thing is great. This thing is absolutely fantastic. When I first read through this, when it first dropped in Tasha's, I was kind of surprised that they allowed something like this to be official. I was really shocked at just how good it is. Now, when you go back and look at some of the other stuff that's in Tasha's, you kind of get where this was going, right? Because there are also things like the Twilight Cleric that come in here and kind of do similar things. And so it's not as crazy when you look at it that way. But man, it's super good, right? So looking back at what we've ranked so far, I have to look at what the other subclasses have given me, right? Looking back at like the Archfey, especially the Archfey, right? Looking back at what I ranked that at, and how does this compare? This beats the socks off of the Archfey. I'm sorry, it does. Even though I think the Archfey is good, and I have a higher opinion of the Archfey than most people, this is just really good. I can't give this less than a 10 out of 10 overall. If you thought that I was giving it any less, I don't know where you are. This thing is super good, and it just, all of it works well together. It all really complements the Warlock kit. It takes away some of the biggest restrictions that the Warlock has as a class, and then it also goes and applies it to other classes that have some of the same or at least similar problems, especially when it comes to resting. No matter how you look at it, this is an absolutely incredibly good subclass. Absolutely is worth bringing. So that is our video for today. I hope you all enjoyed that. We of course are going to be building one later this week, and I think I might finally break out the cheese grater. I have not shown you all how to do a Warlock cheese grater just yet, but I may end up having to do that. We will just have to see. Until then, stay safe out there, stay healthy. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.